I want to start by addressing something that I think many of you hold as an unshakable truth. The belief that when a surgeon, someone like me, stands before you in a white coat and recommends an operation, that recommendation is the final word, a decree that must be followed without question for the sake of your own survival. It is a natural and deeply ingrained trust, one that I have benefited from throughout my career, and it is a trust I do not take lightly. But I am here today to gently, yet firmly, ask you to reconsider that very premise. You see, for the first 10 years of my practice, I operated with the unyielding conviction that my technical skill was the single most important factor in my patients' outcomes, that my job was to fix the mechanical problem, to bypass the blocked vessel or replace the faulty valve, and that if the surgery was a technical success, then my work was done. It was a clean, sterile, and satisfying narrative, but it was a narrative that began to crumble the more I sat with my patients in the weeks and months following their procedures, watching their lives unfold in ways I had never fully anticipated. I started to notice a pattern, a silent and often unspoken reality that the medical textbooks and the surgical journals failed to capture. And that was the profound and often devastating cost that major surgery exacts on a body that has already weathered 6 decades or more of life. I would see a patient whose heart was now beating with textbook perfection, but whose mind had become clouded, whose muscles had atrophied, and whose spirit had been broken by the sheer assault of the operation and the long, lonely road to recovery. And I began to ask myself a difficult question. Was I truly helping these people? Or was I simply trading one set of problems for another, perhaps even more debilitating set of challenges? This is the question that has haunted me and driven me to speak to you today, because I have come to understand that the human body, particularly the body of a person over 60, is not a simple machine with replaceable parts, but a complex, interdependent ecosystem that responds to the trauma of surgery in ways that are often far more fragile than we are willing to admit. As we age, our physiological reserves diminish. The subtle but critical margins of safety that allow a younger person to bounce back from a major insult are simply no longer there. And what we call routine surgery can easily become a cascade of complications that no one could have predicted. The immune system is slower to respond. The cardiovascular system is less resilient. The kidneys are more susceptible to injury from the contrast dyes and medications we use. And the brain, perhaps most critically, is far more vulnerable to the effects of anesthesia and the systemic inflammation that follows any major operation. This is not a sign of failure or a character flaw. It is simply a biological reality, a fact of life that we as surgeons must learn to respect. But all too often, we are driven by a culture of intervention, a deeply ingrained belief that doing something is always better than doing nothing. And this bias can lead us to recommend surgeries that are far more dangerous than the conditions they are meant to treat. I want to share with you, not to frighten you, but to arm you with the knowledge you need to navigate these treacherous waters, what I consider to be the 5 most perilous operations for a person over 60, procedures that I have seen derail the lives of too many wonderful people. First, let us talk about coronary artery bypass grafting, the bypass surgery, which for many is the gold standard for treating severe blockages in the heart. And indeed, for a younger patient with a massive heart attack, it can be a life-saving miracle. But for a senior with stable angina, or a significant blockage that has been there for years, the risks often begin to outweigh the benefits. The surgery itself requires stopping the heart, putting you on a heart-lung machine, and then performing the delicate work of sewing new vessels onto your heart. And while you are on that machine, your blood is being exposed to foreign surfaces, which can trigger a massive inflammatory response that can affect every organ in your body. The recovery is grueling, often requiring weeks in the hospital and months of rehabilitation. And for a senior, the risk of stroke, kidney failure, and a condition called pump head, a form of cognitive decline that can be permanent, is alarmingly high. And the worst part is that we now have incredibly effective alternatives. In many cases, a simple change in lifestyle, a careful regimen of medications to manage blood pressure and cholesterol, and most importantly, a course of cardiac rehabilitation that includes supervised exercise, can be just as effective at managing your symptoms and preventing a heart attack as a surgery itself. Second, and this is a difficult one for many to hear, is the aortic valve replacement, particularly for those with what is called aortic stenosis, a narrowing of the valve that makes it harder for the heart to pump blood. It is true that this is a progressive disease that, if left untreated, will eventually lead to heart failure. But the traditional open heart surgery to replace the valve is a massive undertaking. And while the newer TAVR procedure is less invasive, it is still a major intervention with significant risks for seniors, including stroke and damage to the heart's electrical system. The conversation that is rarely had is one about the timeline. For many people over 60, particularly those over 75, the progression of their aortic stenosis is slow, and they may have many good years before the symptoms become truly disabling. In those cases, a thoughtful and careful management of symptoms with medication, a focus on improving overall fitness and nutrition, and a plan for vigilant monitoring can be a far more sensible approach than rushing into a high-risk operation that could very well leave you in a worse state than you were before. Third, we must address the carotid endarterectomy, a surgery designed to clean out a blockage in the carotid artery in your neck to prevent a stroke. And this, more than any other, is a surgery where the prevention can often be deadlier than the disease itself. For a senior who has a significant blockage but has never had any symptoms, no mini strokes, no transient ischemic attacks, the risk of having a stroke during the very surgery meant to prevent one is often higher than the risk of having a stroke from the blockage itself. It is a desperate irony, one that I have witnessed with a heavy heart. A patient and their family, terrified of the possibility of a future stroke, consenting to an operation that ends up causing that very stroke on the operating table, and there is no coming back from that. In these cases, the far safer and more intelligent choice is almost always the aggressive medical management of their risk factors, controlling their blood pressure, managing their cholesterol, taking their blood thinners, and adopting a heart-healthy lifestyle that will protect their arteries just as effectively, if not more so, than a surgeon's scalpel. Fourth, I want to talk about the often overlooked but devastating surgery for an abdominal aortic aneurysm, which is a bulge in the major blood vessel that runs through your abdomen. And while a ruptured aneurysm is a catastrophic and almost universally fatal event, the surgery to repair it before it ruptures is one of the most dangerous operations a human being can undergo. This is a race against a ticking time bomb. But the key question, the one that is so often glossed over, is what is the actual risk of that bomb going off? For an aneurysm that is less than 5.5 centimeters in a senior, the risk of rupture over the next year is often lower than the risk of dying from the surgery itself, which can involve massive blood loss, kidney failure, and spinal cord injury that can cause paralysis. In such a scenario, a watch and wait strategy with regular ultrasound monitoring to track the aneurysm size is not a passive or cowardly choice. It is often the most aggressive and intelligent thing you can do to protect your own life and your own quality of life. And finally, the fifth, and perhaps the most controversial, is the surgery for cancer. And I am not saying that cancer should never be treated, but I am asking you to consider the possibility that an aggressive, radical surgery to get it all out may not always be the best path forward for an older person. The human body is remarkably resilient, but it is also finite, and a surgery that removes a significant portion of your digestive tract, your lungs, or your pancreas will fundamentally alter your ability to eat, breathe, and live the life you know. Sometimes, a more conservative approach, a smaller surgery to debulk the tumor, combined with radiation or less aggressive chemotherapy, or even a decision to focus entirely on quality of life and pain management, can yield a longer, happier, and more meaningful existence than a brutal, life-altering operation that leaves you in a nursing home. This is the hardest conversation I ever have with my patients, because we are trained to fight, to never give up. But sometimes, the bravest and most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say, not this, not today. Now, with all of this said, I do not want you to leave here thinking that I am a surgeon who does not believe in surgery, because I have seen it perform miracles, but I have also seen it cause profound harm. And the difference between those two outcomes often comes down to a single critical factor: the patient. An informed, empowered, and questioning patient is the best defense against an unnecessary or overly aggressive surgery, which is why I want to give you the 4 most powerful questions you can ever ask a surgeon when they recommend an operation. The first and most important question is simply, "Doctor, do I really need this surgery right now, or is it safe to wait and see how things develop?" This simple question forces your surgeon to articulate the urgency of the situation and to differentiate between a true emergency and a problem that can be monitored, giving you the chance to explore less invasive options. The second question is, what are the specific risks of this surgery for someone my age with my particular health conditions? And what is the likelihood of a major complication like a stroke, a heart attack, or a permanent disability? You are not asking for a general statistic from a textbook. You are demanding a personalized risk assessment, an honest accounting of what the surgeon believes are your personal odds, and you deserve to hear those numbers in plain English. The third question, and this one is vital, is, what is the recovery process really like? And what kind of life can I expect to have 6 months and a year from now? This is where you get past the immediate surgical success and into the reality of your daily existence. The pain, the rehabilitation, the potential loss of independence, and the profound emotional toll that a long recovery can take on you and your family. And the fourth question, the one that will truly shift the balance of power, is, what happens if I choose not to have this surgery, and instead we focus on managing my condition with medication, lifestyle changes, and watchful waiting? This question invites your surgeon to see the path of non-intervention as a valid and strategic medical choice, and it forces them to compare the risks of the surgery against the risks of doing nothing, which is a comparison that must be made. I want to share with you the story of a patient, a wonderful man named Robert, who came to me at the age of 72 with a significant blockage in his heart and a very aggressive surgeon who had recommended a triple bypass. Robert was terrified, but he was also a retired engineer, a man who believed in data, and he came to me with a notebook full of questions, asking about the statistics, the recovery timeline, and the alternatives. We had a long and honest conversation, and I laid out all the risks and benefits for him, and ultimately, he made the difficult but brave decision to decline the surgery and instead enroll in an intensive cardiac rehabilitation program and optimize his medications. That was over 4 years ago, and just last week, Robert walked into my office, a spring in his step, to tell me he had just come back from a hiking trip in the mountains, a trip he could not have taken if he had been recovering from open heart surgery. His heart condition is stable, he has had no heart attacks, and he is living a full and vibrant life, not as a testament to my surgical skill, but as a testament to his own courage and his willingness to question the conventional wisdom. Robert's story is not an anomaly. It is a powerful example of what is possible when a patient becomes a true captain of their own medical journey. This is the message I want to leave with you today. The single most important piece of advice I can offer in my 20 years of practice, and that is this. Do not surrender your power to me or to any other doctor just because we wear a white coat. We have knowledge and experience, yes, but you have the knowledge of your own body, your own life, and your own priorities. And those are just as valuable, if not more so, than any textbook I have ever read. You are not a vessel to be filled with our opinions, and you are not a machine to be repaired. You are a person with a history, a family, and a future. And your voice must be the loudest one in the room when a decision about your life is being made. The operating room is a place of immense power, but the true power, the power to choose, belongs to you. And you must guard that power fiercely. The culture of medicine is changing, but it is changing slowly. And in the meantime, you must be your own fiercest advocate, asking the hard questions, demanding the data, and taking the time you need to make a decision that you can live with, not just survive through. I have seen the triumphs of surgery, the patients who have been given a second chance at life, and I have also seen the tragedies, the ones who felt they had no choice but to say yes. My goal in speaking to you today is to ensure that you are never in that latter group, that you always feel equipped to ask for a second opinion, to seek out a physician who will listen to your concerns, and to never, ever feel pressured into a procedure that doesn't feel right to you. Your intuition is a powerful tool. It is the sum total of your life's experience, and it deserves to be heard and respected. I want you to understand that a no to a surgeon's recommendation is not a sign of weakness or denial. It is a sign of strength, a declaration that you are in control of your body and your destiny. It takes immense courage to look a surgeon in the eye and say, "I understand your recommendation, but I am choosing a different path." And that courage can be the very thing that saves your life. So as you go forward, I want you to carry this message with you. To remember that the most important question is not, "Can you fix me?" but rather, "Should you fix me? And if so, at what cost?" It is a question that requires a deep and nuanced answer, one that only you can fully provide in partnership with a doctor who respects your agency. This is not about rejecting medical science. It is about embracing it with a critical and discerning eye, about using the incredible power of modern medicine, but not being enslaved by it. It is about taking the knowledge I have shared with you today and using it as a shield against the well-meaning but often misguided pressure to undergo procedures that may not serve you. Look at your life, the people you love, the things you enjoy, the simple pleasures of a morning cup of coffee or an afternoon walk with a friend, and ask yourself, will this surgery help me protect these precious things, or will it put them in jeopardy? The answer to that question is the only metric that truly matters. I am no longer the young surgeon who believed that the knife was the answer to every problem. I am now a man who has seen the full scope of the human experience, both in health and in sickness. And I know that sometimes the most powerful and compassionate thing a doctor can do is to simply hold a patient's hand and say, "I understand, and I will be here for you, whatever you decide." This is the new frontier of medicine, a partnership of equals where the patient's values and goals are as important as a doctor's clinical expertise. It is a vision of healthcare that is not just about treating disease, but about caring for the whole person. And it is a vision that I am deeply committed to. I want you to go home today and think about this conversation, to talk about it with your family and your friends, and to spread this message of empowerment and informed consent. The more people who understand these principles, the more the culture of medicine will shift toward a more compassionate, patient-centered approach. Do not let the fear of a future illness push you into a decision that could rob you of the present. And do not let the urgency of a doctor's recommendation override your own thoughtful deliberation. You have time, you have options, and you have a voice. And those three things are the most powerful tools you possess. I am not here to tell you to never have surgery, for that would be a great disservice. But I am here to tell you to never, ever, under any circumstances, consent to an operation without a full and complete understanding of what you are consenting to. You must be able to articulate, in your own words, the risks, the benefits, and the alternatives. This is a right that has been given to you by law and by ethics, and it is a right that you must exercise, not as a passive recipient of information, but as an active, engaged, and deeply curious investigator into your own health. Your life depends on it, and your quality of life depends on it even more. So my final message to you, the one I hope you will carry with you always, is this. Be the hero of your own story, the fierce advocate for your own well-being, and the wise guardian of your own future. Step into your power, ask the questions, and remember that you have the final say. The decision of what happens to your body is yours, and yours alone. And it is a decision that should be made with clarity, confidence, and calm, not with fear, pressure, or a sense of helplessness. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all a long, healthy, and empowered life.